Hey folks, it's been a while, so I thought it was time to do another demo. So we have a bunch of new stuff in LightBurn. Let me open up one of my folders here. Dxf support has gotten dramatically better. We now have proper support for Dxf Spline objects. So let me back this out. As an example, this file is Dxf Splines. It comes in not bad, kind of messy. The way Dxf Splines work, there's not an easy way to translate them into Bezier curves, so they end up coming in as lots of teeny little points. This is pretty normal, and anything like Inkscape or other tools do the same thing. LightBurn, however, does have some tools to help it. So one of the things you can do is auto join. That allows you to connect things that weren't previously connected. We also have new optimization tools. So if I bring up the optimize menu, I can do a line fit or an arc fit, and they have nice handy little sliders. So if you look at these points along here, for example, if I start sliding up the arc tolerance, they turn into fairly nice curves. A better place to look actually is down here. These things would have been Dxf spline, curve objects originally. If I bring up the optimizer, all of these shapes over here are straight lines, and they've got like random points in the middles of them. So if I turn up the line fitter just a tiny little bit, you can see that almost all of those go away. And then ditto for the arc fit, turn that up just a tiny little bit, and these things turn back into spline handles. And so this whole file goes from being 6,600 points down to 1,800 points, which makes it a lot easier to work with. Also, some of the stuff in here has really broad scale changes. So this text here, the rubber gun, this is really small. It's only a couple millimeters high, whereas the overall shape is quite large. So you don't want to apply the same level of optimization to this shape as you do to the overall shape. And so you can mix and match, kind of select different pieces, turn the optimizer up really hard for some, down really low for others, and so on. But generally speaking, it works quite well. It makes all of your shapes a lot easier to work with. So Dxf Splines and the optimize and join tools, I've added hotkeys for those things to make them easier to work with. But the cool feature of this whole thing is just the interactive nature of it. If I've got an object like this, that's got a lot of curves, or sorry, a lot of points in it, the interactive optimizer makes it really nice to figure out kind of a happy medium, like where your good points are. So if I turn it up too high, you can see that it gets pretty chunky. You obviously don't want that, but you can count. You can see what the point counts are over here. So turn it up just a tiny little bit, and you can see that the numbers change quite a bit. Turn up the arc fitter a little, and you can see that the points drop off quite a bit more. If I zoom in on this now, this thing still looks like it did, but it's a lot less heavyweight. It's a little easier to node edit, things like that. And you can really see it when you do something like this. If I create a circle, for example, normally a circle is just these tangent handles. If I tell LightBurn to convert this object into a cut, what I end up with is lots of little points. And so that's the kind of thing that you'll often see with imported shapes from other tools. So running the optimizer, if I, oh, I'm running the wrong thing. I just added the hotkeys and I still don't even know them myself. So turn up the arc fitter, and within just a couple of bumps of the slider, you've gone from 128 points down to 7, 6, whatever. And so that's a much lighter weight object. And if you look at the two dropped over top of each other, they're basically identical. It does a really good job of recovering the curves. What else? So I've added a new type of image dithering. If I import Abbott and Costello here, change the size a little bit, to make it more manageable. The typical setting that you would use for a continuous tone picture like this would be the regular kind of noise dithering. If I convert this to a cut, which lets me see what LightBurn does to the points, you can see there's a few little straggly bits out here, kind of lines. That's pretty common for error diffused dithering. If you've got pictures that have really large chunks of solid color, you end up with these kinds of patterns in them sometimes, and there's not really much that you can do about it. However, with the ordered halftoning or dithering, what you end up with is this. So still a few little scattered points there, but they're not nearly as eye-catching because they're not in a line. So the overall pattern is more ordered and consistent. This isn't going to be a great choice for everything, but it is a good choice for some things, some pictures, and so it was nice to be able to include it. What else? Oh yeah, undo. I can continue to undo forever and ever and ever. Those are the two biggest features. I've done a couple. Oh, I actually wanted to show off one more thing. Let me bring that picture back in. Actually, let me do something a little, bring this one back. The preview window has gotten a time estimate now. So if I bring up the preview, you can see here down in the bottom, it tells you how much distance you're going to be cutting, how much distance you're going to be moving, and then what the overall estimated time is. So it thinks it's going to be about a minute to do the cut based on the current speeds that I'm using. That seems about right for this thing. This is a total wild guess. It's entirely based on what the speed that you've set is and a guess on what your rapid moves are. It doesn't take into account acceleration or deceleration, but it's not terrible and it'll give you a ballpark at least. I've also set it up so that you can double click the window and expand it up. You can also now zoom in and pan around in here like you can with the edit window, which you couldn't before. So that makes it a lot more useful because you can zoom in on stuff. That actually makes it quite a bit more useful for image cuts. So if I go back to Abbott and Costello here, I change these guys to be a little smaller, generate a, or no, not generate a cut from that, we'll just do the preview. So this is the preview window that gets produced from that. You can see these here on the sides are my overscan cuts. I can turn off the traversal moves, so now you're just seeing what the pattern is that it's going to generate. But you can zoom in and pan around and see much better what the shading is going to look like. So this is useful for image cuts, where before you'd end up with stuff like this if your cut density was really high. So if I set the DPI setting to be, say, 450, and I go back to my preview, normally the preview would look fairly dense like this. And sometimes with really dense cuts or really dark images, it's hard to see the detail. So having the ability to zoom in really helps that a lot. That's the biggest stuff. We've got a couple more devices in the device profile. I've added Marlin support. That's still being tested. I've added FabKit support, which is also still being tested. Oh, node editing. This is something that's actually gone in or been being improved. It's still pretty terrible, but it's not as bad. If I convert this object to a path, so I just made myself this square, go into the node editing. So you could do this before, and you know, I've had a line tool here for a while where I could create lines and do stuff like that, but it was never great. You can now change your selection while you're in node edit mode, which you couldn't before. And the latest greatest tool that I've got is I can click on a point and hit S to smooth it. This is fairly useful, helpful for making smooth shapes because I don't currently have a tool that will let you draw freehand. I'm going to be shoring up the line editing kind of over the next little while, or the node editing over the next little while, because it needs a lot of love still. But that helps quite a bit, just the ability to change your selection while you're in that mode, move it around. I think that's about it. Thanks for watching.